So I've been reflecting on how hatred against men is commonplace and is accepted as being normal. It's fine to hate men quite easily. And I'm trying to understand why this is the case. And what I'm thinking is, we say things like ladies before gentlemen and see that as polite and nice and civilized behavior. The language is appropriate. But we would regard saying whites before blacks as being hateful racism, completely unacceptable, and basically nasty behavior. So I'm thinking that saying whites before blacks is equivalent to saying ladies before gentlemen. It's the same thing, basically, going on. The same treatment of men and women and black and white people. It is the same hatred and evil language that's being used. But on the one hand, with black and white, we regard it as hateful. But with men and women, we regard it as civilized and appropriate. So the question is why? What I'm thinking is that way back in the past, it may have been allowed to say whites before blacks. It may have been possible for someone to get away with saying something so hateful. But then I'm wondering, well, why would it have been appropriate long ago but wouldn't be accepted now? What's different? I'm thinking that times have changed. We've moved on from how things may have been in the past. And there's been a lot of friction, a lot of violence, a lot of complaint, a lot of action, basically, to bring about this change. So I'm wondering, since we still have hatred in the expression ladies before gentlemen, or women and children to the lifeboats first, I'm wondering that if we're going to move away from that and regard that language as being just as inappropriate as saying whites before blacks, do we need to go through the same process that has brought us to a stage of completely rejecting racism? In other words, do we need to have violence and discord and rampaging? Do we need to go through that process to achieve the end of regarding hatred against men as being unacceptable? I'm basically wondering, do men have to go on a rampage in order to be treated civilly? To not be abused, basically? To not be disregarded? Is the only way to combat misandry for men to be violent and to riot and to create havoc? I am wondering if misandry can be tackled effectively in a civilized way. I am wondering basically if the only way misandry can be tackled is for men to go on the rampage. The only reason I'm thinking this is going on a rampage is what has fixed the racial problem. So it seems to me that since the problems are so similar, going on a rampage might achieve the same result, an end to misandry. I'm wondering if men can wake up without discord and trouble in society. I'm asking myself why men accept misandry, they accept the mistreatment, even though it's so blatant and so severe in many cases. And men don't react because I would say they don't even recognize the mistreatment. It is so much a part of their experience of life that it doesn't raise any attention. There's no realization of how the mistreatment is being delivered. Men basically don't see it. When a man hears the expression ladies before gentlemen, he sees it as civilized and appropriate and nods his head and leads the woman forward. So men essentially enable misandry and take part in their own mistreatment. There is a complete lack of realization. Misandry seems to have been accepted as being normal behavior. It is so awful for it to be the situation. For men to take part in their own abuse and to not even see it as abuse and to not feel anything. It is absolutely crazy for men to take part in their own mistreatment and see it in a positive way. Men's self-respect is simply not there. Men simply do not value themselves. I'm really wondering what the solution to this is. This incredibly sad situation, this sad reality where men do not value themselves. I am thinking hard on ways to raise men's awareness of their importance and their value, and to open men's eyes to see the awful treatment that men undergo. I have tried very hard up to now, and I will keep trying for some reason, but I'm wondering if I'm being unrealistic. For some reason, I do want men to care for themselves. And even though I don't know my son, I do want him to care for himself. I do want him to live well. It is important for men to begin to care about themselves, to not see themselves as second class. I suppose it could just come down to the sexual imperative. But I'm thinking that I have overcome that behavior. I intend to no longer pursue women, court women, to no longer allow my attraction towards women to affect my behavior. Women will not form part of my life in future. And that is a big decision and a difficult decision and a big change in my life. I do believe I can pull it off. And I know that I value myself. I do not want to be an addict. I want to be in control of my behavior. I do hope that I can do it, and I do believe I can. And I hope that most men could see a way forward and to improve their lives. I don't claim to know it all, but I do know this. I do know that men need to wake up. They need to see themselves. They need to see the reality of how things are now.